Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our ICT Educator webinar series. My name is Sean Monson. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Product and Development Lead and NetLab User Group Lead for the ICT sector. Today I'm representing Steve Wright. He normally runs these things and does a great job of doing it. Anyway, he asked me to stand in for him. So not only am I hosting today, but I'm also presenting today. So I have kind of a split personality. If you, when you get time, you should go out and visit our ICT website, where we have our regional directors was on the previous slide, and our support team. Oh, thank you, Nicole. So that's me in the middle there, and Nicole Sherman. She's the heart of these series. She puts all of this information together and pulls these presenters together. Does an amazing job of doing that. We've got lots of great material out on our website, including ICT pathways, materials, and prior webinars. This webinar series is really intended to bring relevant information to educators and administrators to help them bring quality programs to their students. We have programs around, or webinars around cybersecurity, just general ICT topics, business topics. And so there's lots of great content out there. So yeah, get out there and check out the webinars. We actually, we record all of our webinars. They are chapterized, transcripted, so it makes it really convenient to be able to go out and view those webinars. You don't have to watch the whole thing in one sitting. You can find the areas that are of interest to you. Some of our upcoming series: on the 6th, we have a webinar on how to get higher transfer rates in computer science pathways. And then on the 20th, cloud computing in California community colleges. So those are the upcoming webinars. For today, I'm going to be talking, and Nancy is going to be talking about CAE, Centers of Academic Excellence. And both of us belong to colleges or are associated with colleges that have their CAE designation. I'm going to be talking about, so our college was just recently designated, and so I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience. Basically, hey, we did it, and you can do it too.
Collect your data.
From the approach that, you know, I wish I had known these things going into the process. You know, kind of coming to you as a trusted advisor saying, hey, you might want to do these kinds of things to make the process a little bit easier for you. So anyway, that's going to be my approach and my discussion today. Nancy Jones, I'm sure most of you are familiar with her. She's doing amazing things down at Coastline College. She's the Dean of Instruction down there and has been leading their CAE effort for a number of years. And she's going to share, first of all, some of the changes to the application process. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, but they are making some fairly sizable changes to the CAE application process. In addition to that, she's going to be speaking to this from someone that's actually been a CAE institution for a while and kind of answering the question, you know, is it worth it? She's going to be talking about results, impacts, metrics, those kinds of things. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And we will leave time at the end for questions. Also, if you want to type your questions into the chat, we'll do our best to keep up with those, but don't hesitate to raise your hand or ask a question. Honestly, I prefer more of a discussion than a lecture, so don't hesitate to ask questions as we're going through as well. So I'm going to share my screen here. Let's see. And hopefully you can see my slides. All right. So as I mentioned, today I'm going to talk about the CAE Centers of Academic Excellence in Cyber Defense Education, and that's the designation that that we achieved last year. And basically, we did it, and you can do it too. And I'm going to give you some advice about how you can do that. So on the agenda today, we're going to talk about getting a mentor, getting organized, getting the help that you need to get through the process, and then just spend a couple of minutes talking about my experience. And you'll notice over on the right here, these are some of our cybersecurity students that are in our program. All right, so the first piece of advice that I would give you is to get a mentor. The great news is that they do provide mentors to help you through the process. The first little bit of the process, I was kind of on my own and felt extremely overwhelmed, and worked with Tosha Amos over at Watcom. And they have a program where they will provide you a one-on-one mentor to work through the program. And I cannot overemphasize how important it is for you to get a mentor and work with them through this process. I literally could not have made it through the process if I didn't have my mentor. I think Nancy was saying that many or most of the schools that didn't have mentors didn't necessarily make it through the process. And I think the success rate is over 90% for those colleges that do have a mentor. It makes all of the difference. In addition to that, so they have this program called the Application Assistance Program. The first part of that is obviously giving you and assigning you a mentor. The other piece of that is that they will also pay you a stipend to go through the process. It's a fairly generous stipend, but as we'll talk in a little bit, it's a lot of work as well. So it's nice to have a little bit of money there to help pay for the amount of time that it's going to take you to get through the process. All right, so this mentor will work with you one-on-one. You'll have regular meetings with them. They will set up a timeline, and kind of the thing that I liked about it is it gives you someone that you have to be accountable to. You know, each week or every couple of weeks, you're going to be talking with your mentor. So you have somebody to kind of keep you accountable for your progress and your milestones. So if nothing else, that was really helpful for me. In addition, they have experience going through the process. So you'll have a million questions as you're going through this process. And it's really nice to just be able to send off a note to your mentor and get a quick clarification on a question that you have as you're filling out forms or going through the process. In addition to that, one of the required aspects of the application assistance program is that the mentor will need to come out and actually do a site visit at your college. The nice thing about this is that it's kind of an official, they come out kind of as an official representative of the program and really help you ensure that you have the sponsorship at your college that it's going to take for you to actually get through the process. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But yeah, they actually sit down with you and the president of your college to ensure that you've got buy-in at the highest levels of your organization, because you need that to get through successfully. So the second piece that I would talk about in terms of being successful is getting organized. There are literally hundreds of documents and pieces of information that you need to collect, organize, and submit as part of this process. things like course outlines, syllabi, instructor resumes, curriculum paths, program descriptions, student enrollment data, student transcripts, completed student course papers, projects, test questions, just so many different pieces of information that you have to submit to prove that your program is a quality program. If you if you don't get organized, it literally will eat you alive. It is just really easy to get to get disorganized. So. The old analogy, how do you eat an elephant? I know it's going to seem overwhelming, but if you can break it into bite-sized pieces, and the way that I did it is for each criteria, and I'll show you in a minute what the major criteria was, but I used things like my file system and how I organize my documents to kind of keep me organized. But absolutely set milestones and a timeline and work with your mentor on those. Get started early. It's going to take you longer than you think to go through this process. One thing that I did, I actually set aside a time each week that I did nothing but focus on the process. Having a set time set aside really will make a difference. As I mentioned, there's probably 40 or 50 individual documents that you have to upload to the website as part of your process. So ensuring that you have all of that organized is really helpful. And I use my computer file system to help me organize the major criteria, and then I had subfolders for each sub-criteria, and I'll show you kind of what that looks like. And then finally, I came up with a consistent format for the documents that I was actually uploading and submitting, and I'll show you an example of that as well. So this is my file system off of my computer, and as you can see, for each one of the major criteria, I have a folder with the criteria number and the description of the criteria. So these are the seven, or used to be the 7 major criteria that you had to meet. And then under each of those, then I created subfolders for the sub-criteria. So you can see I pulled out number 7, outreach, and showed you what my subfolder looked like. And then if you click on the subfolder, then I used exactly the same naming convention for all of my files, just to keep things organized. Otherwise, like I said, it's going to get overwhelming. And then this is just an example of the document format that I came up with. Part of it for me was just knowing, okay, what's the criteria that I'm turning in? What document am I turning in? What are the requirements for that criteria? So each one of these bullet points are the requirements for that criteria. So I listed that on the document that I turned in. And then to help, really, you want to make it as easy as possible for the people that are reviewing your submission. So you can see down at the bottom, I just gave a short description of what was included in that document, so the reviewer would know exactly, what criteria is it, what are the requirements, and how am I meeting that requirement? What's contained in this document? So I would highly recommend that you use an approach like this. The easier you make it for the reviewer, I think the better result you're going to get. So the next area is get help. For the love of Pete. I didn't, and I wish that I had. So in addition to getting help with actually submitting the proposal itself, you are going to need help from your college and people in your college, and it starts at the top. you're absolutely going to need to get buy-in from the president of your college, because there will be situations where you need to get support for people, and you need to let them know that the president of your college has given their support for this, and you may actually need to get the president of the college involved to get things done. I don't know. I don't know if your colleges are like mine, but oftentimes it's hard to get a big ship moved in a certain direction, and so having that clout from the top can make all of the difference. So some of the other areas that you're going to need to get support or help in, you're going to need to get support from your IT department. Specifically, go to the top, talk to your CIO, because part of this process requires that you have security policies in place and dedicated cybersecurity staff. They want to know that your organization is walking the walk, that they are living up to these cybersecurity principles that are part of the designation, right? So anyway, get support from your IT department. You're going to need copies of student transcripts. You're going to need program enrollment numbers. So make friends with your registrar. You're going to need help from them. You're going to need proof that you have articulation agreements and dual enrollment agreements in place. So you'll want to talk to whoever's responsible for those in your college. At our college, it's our articulation officer. We have someone that does that. Another area of help that you're going to need, web services. So one of the requirements is that you have what's called a cyber center page, which is kind of the landing page that people from the outside can come to see your cybersecurity program. It talks about what the program is about, events, those kinds of things. So you are going to need to work with whoever your web services person is at your college to get that in place. Also, one of the things that you might do is use something like Facebook to actually create your events page. It should be dynamic content. So something like a social media page is probably better for that than a static web page. Also, you'll need to talk to the department chairs or instructors from other departments, because one of the requirements is that you show you are teaching cybersecurity concepts in non-IT classes. So you need to be able to reach out to those other departments and find out what classes they're offering. At our school, it was a lot of it was in the nursing program and the HIPAA regulations and the data security regulations around patient data and those kinds of things. Anyway, you'll need to be able to engage with those other departments to get their content and other items that relate to teaching cyber content in non-IT classes. And then finally, and probably most importantly, you're going to need support from the instructors in your own department that are teaching the classes that you're using for your submission. You'll identify a handful of classes that meet these cybersecurity requirements, and you'll need the instructors from those classes to help you in getting the syllabi together, because you'll need to submit the syllabi. You'll need them to give you copies of redacted exams, examples of labs that the students have done, any faculty outreach that they're doing to other organizations. So there's a lot of components here that you're going to need help from your faculty. So make sure you engage them early on in the process. Not only that, but it would be nice as you're filling out all of the forms that you need to and creating your documents, it would be nice if you had somebody to share that burden with. I wish that I had had 2 or 3 instructors or somebody there to help me through the process. And then finally, and probably most importantly, what are called knowledge unit mappings. So knowledge units are really the topic areas or the cybersecurity areas that you have to show your teaching in your program. And mapping knowledge units to your courses is one of the biggest tasks that you will do. There's literally hundreds of these knowledge unit mappings. So you have to show for this knowledge unit, where are you teaching this in your curriculum? And that's where the other instructors come into play. So if possible, have the instructors who are teaching those courses do the mapping for you. Just to give you an example, this is the high level knowledge units. And again, just to let you know kind of how deep it goes, I highlighted one, basic networking, and there are actually 9 subtopics under this knowledge unit that you have to address with 6 additional outcomes. So you can multiply that number of topics times this number of knowledge units, and that will give you some idea as to the complexity and the level of work that there is to map these knowledge units with your courses. So I drilled down into one of those topics, and actually this is actually in the basic networking knowledge unit, and this is topic number 4 out of 9, and you can see the topic title at the top, and then you have to go in and say what course covers this topic. And then you have to say what chapters in that course are specifically covering that topic. And then you have to identify the learning objectives, the official learning objectives from the class that then relate back to that topic. So as you can see, there's a lot of work around trying to map these knowledge units to your courses. So get help doing that. And so finally, we had made an attempt to get our CAE designation before. It was an unsuccessful attempt, which kind of made me feel even more pressure to try and get it done this time. It was basically a 10-month process from the time I signed up to the time that we received our confirmation of our award. So it can be a long drawn-out process. I worked alone in terms of putting all of the pieces together. Obviously, I worked with other departments and other those other folks, but I was the only person putting this this proposal together. So don't do that. Learn from my mistakes. Literally hundreds of hours of work that you'll need to put in on these. So just be prepared. I wasn't really prepared for how much work it was going to be. I did get paid a stipend, and that does take, does help. But if you look at the stipend versus the number of hours, you might don't do it for the money, is what I'm trying to say. The designation in and of itself is reward enough. And then my mentor was Joe Murdoch from Red Rocks Community College in Colorado, and again, can't say enough or thank him enough for the help that he gave me to go through that process. And yes, you too can get one of these letters from the CAE saying that you are in fact have been designated as a National Center of Academic Excellence in Cyber Defense Education. You too can get there. Any of you that are thinking about going through the process, don't hesitate to reach out to me. If you have questions or you need help or whatever, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Why don't we go ahead and open it up now? I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And let's see. Were there any questions? All right. Nancy, do you want to go ahead and get started?
Sure. So has everybody, can everybody see my screen where we are? Yes, no?
Yes.
Yes. Yep, we can.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
So I'm going to be talking a little bit about the process because since, even though Sean is a new designee, they've gone through and we're in the process of redoing some of it. So I wanted to kind of bring a little attention to that. But then I also want to talk about the benefits. And those of you that have, there are now 7 community colleges in California that have the CAE designation, yay. You know, feel free to chime in to some of the benefits you guys have also received from this too. So anyway, that's what I'm going to be talking about. So we used to be called CAE 2Ys, and now we're being called CAE CD for Cyber Defense Associate. And then the 4-year institutions are going to be bachelors with their CACD bachelor's, CACD master's, or doctoral. And then the 4-year institutions also have the optional research designation, which is a totally different designation. And again, it's more for the research areas. But they keep changing how they talk to us up through, I think it was 2010. They didn't even have any community colleges that had this designation. And so they've been kind of playing with that as we're going through there. So now we're called associates, and just keep that in mind. So most of you guys are aware that this is from NSA and Homeland Security, and this is the website. It's under the Directorate for the National IA, that's Information Assurance, Education, and Training Program. So that's why it's NIETP, which is, you know, after a while you'll get that, you know, on your tongue, so it's not a problem. But that's the website, and I wanted you to have that. And this is what it looks like. So as you are going there, everybody's servers are going to be trying to block this and say, oh, it's not, you know, protected. We don't want you to go there. And, you know, the certificates aren't up to date and all that kind of stuff. They know that it's a government institution, even though it's cybersecurity. I just think that is so funny. But anyway, so just keep going through and accepting it, and it'll take you to their homepage. And this is the homepage where you really need to, you know, become familiar with, because this is where you're going to be getting all of the information. So up in the upper right-hand corner, or excuse me, left-hand corner is the homepage where we are, but it also has the CAE requirements and resources, which are really helpful, and I'll take you there in a second. And then it has a listing of all the CAE designated institutions, and there are now 311 institutions. There were 175 when we first received ours 6 years ago. So it's been growing fast. So you can actually see by state the designated institutions, and then they have contact information, different warnings and stuff, but also login. So right now we're logging in through here to put in applications, although the application website is down right now, but this is where you would go at this point. They are going to be moving that to the CAE community website as they go through this process. So what they have been doing, because there are so many people that are applying and who are trying to get information on the CAE information, that the federal government, when they need to make changes to processes or to servers, or, you know, you'd think that they would have, you know, instantaneous, you know, we think we're the only ones that have to wait around for, you know, purchase orders and board approval and all that kind of stuff. But it's been taking them years to try and get this application tool updated and corrected and make it more user friendly. So Sean can, you know, verify that, you know, it's really a rudimentary application portal right now, but it's going to be nice and more user-friendly as we go forward, and hopefully it'll save us a lot more time. But it's been a long process because the government really is the Titanic, and it's very slow to make any changes. But right now, this is where you would go. I do want to point out, once you get the designation, just like with your regular accreditation that you have for your college, you have annual reports that you have to do. And so usually, they're not too difficult to do, but you do need to work with your institutional researcher to pull that data up. And so the year following your designation, you have to do that. It also talks about the designation cycles, and this is where they're making that announcement that because the application tool is being redone, they're not opening it up. I heard they're going to try and do fall, but excuse me, I'm not sure if they're going to actually make that or not. But all of the institutions that were redesignating in 2020 are being able to have an additional year to redesignate. So this is a big deal that they're totally reworking this entire website. They've been talking about it for years, but now it's in the process. So the application process is not open to anyone. Redesignation process is not open to anyone either. But you can still get the information about the KU knowledge units that Sean was talking about and the criteria that you have to gather information. So you don't have to stop doing everything at this point. You can still go through and start gathering off of the documents that are located up on this website. So that's why I brought it to your attention. There are also these new CAE workshops that they have. A lot of times we have it at Coastline. We had one in December, I think it was, November, I guess it was. And then, so we usually have a couple a year, and that's where it's not put on by Coastline. Coastline just hosts it because we're pretty easy to get to. But it's where Watcom comes and sends different mentors or different people from other institutions to come and present on the application itself so that you are more comfortable with that. And so I don't know, Sean, if you had gone to one of those or not.
No, I didn't.
Okay, so that would have been really helpful. They didn't have them when I did it. I did our first application, and because my vice president wants me to actually do my dean job instead of just pretend that I'm full-time cybersecurity, I handed it off to Toby, and she did it this last time and did a phenomenal job. So anyway, she went to several of these workshops, and she now still is asked to attend those to try and do exactly what Sean was doing. So his input is valuable, extremely valuable for you. So but it's an opportunity to get some insight onto how this all works. I also want to mention that there is the CAE community event. That is a website that is for the CAE institution. So the forward-facing website has information for anybody interested in cybersecurity. But once you're a CAE institution, they do grant you access to the inside information, so you could do that. And then down here on the bottom, do you see where it says updated CAE application checklist? If you go there, it takes you to the CAE community website, and then says you can't go any farther from here because they haven't, the application checklist is being redone as well. So don't get your hopes up because it redirects you somewhere, because it actually doesn't allow you to be able to pull that up. So once you go to the CAE requirements page, this is where you get all of the documents that are really helpful. And this is where you can get started until the checklist and other things are submitted. So this is just really critical. I'm always directing people to this. So you have the program guidance is the first document, and it actually talks you through the different steps and what's going on, and kind of gives you an idea of the entire process, but it's not specific because it's being changed. And then they have the new applicants for CAER, and they have the associate level and so on. So they have all the documents here that would be very helpful for you to go in and start the process of gathering the information. Now, the things that Sean has done and the things that we've done in preparation for these, for the designation, they're still there to, for the majority of the items. They're just tweaking some of them. So you're not going to waste time becoming familiar with what the criteria is and what the knowledge units are, or even organizing things. Sean, your office must be the most organized thing in the entire world. I've never seen anything so organized as your setup, but I can see where it would save so much time. So if you're considering this, get with Sean so he can help you set up some organization to be able to gather that, because it will drive you nuts. The 40 or 50 documents, that's on the low side, I think. So there's a lot of things to gather, a lot of things to keep track of, and being organized is perfect. But here's where you need to go all the time. Okay, so I mentioned that the checklist isn't up right now, but that's the place to start. So they'll have that up soon. And the reason you want to start there is that once it is available, you go through and they ask you where you are in your program development and how long it's been there and those kinds of things. So one of the metrics is that you have to have 3 years of data of graduation or certificate earning data. And so that is one of the stumbling points that a lot of people have. But it also asks you for information about, do you offer, classes that cover this, or do you have outreach? Another stumbling block that a lot of people have are the competitions. If you're not in the competition arena, you need to get that done. But what's nice about this checklist is it goes through, and even if you have no on every item that's in the checklist, don't be discouraged, because when you submit that checklist, it goes up to, right now it's Whatcom Community College, and it's whatcom.edu. They were going through a process of applying for new centers. So COSIGN's the CAE Regional Resource Center for the Southwestern states, but we're having to apply again. So there'll be a shuffling, the regions are changing, and the CAE leadership is changing. So, but I think Whatcom's going to still keep their mentoring and their National Resource Center area. But so we send it in to the, ask email address that's on the checklist. And from there, they have people that look at your answers. They send it to Whatcom. They look at your answers and they decide whether you're within 1 year of completion of having a successful application, or if you need to have some more program development. If you're within 1 year, that's when you are assigned, if you want to have a mentor, like Sean had, you're assigned that from Whatcom. And then if you need more help on development on some areas, then you're given to the CRRC, or what is going to be now called the CAE Hub. And so while they don't do monthly meetings or those kinds of things, they look at your application to kind of give you some ideas of what you need, and then you can ask questions, and they're there to kind of stand next to you and help you. But they're not there to do your application for you. Just like when Sean had his mentor didn't go through and do his application. Sean had to do all that hard work himself. So anyway,
unfortunately.
You're a better man for it, right? That's
oh,
what
yeah.
I kept saying.
Yes.
So anyway, just be aware there is a change there, but do the checklist first, because it also opens up funding opportunities for conferences and different activities that, when you're first starting out, you might not have the funding to do that. So they make funding available for not only the those that are within a year, like Sean was, or those that are in program development that are sent out to the CRRC. Okay, so the submission process, as you mentioned, the application website, you saw that letter of support is critical, and Sean just really went over that wonderfully. But then realize there's two sets of documents that you're collecting. One is program criteria, and that's really more of, you know, activities. That's where your information about your articulation agreements with the CSUs and the high schools and the pathways and those kinds of things. And then, you know, the types of faculty members you have, what their resumes are, what professional development and support you have from the college, stuff like that. And then you have the KU mappings. And I think the KU mappings for me were the most difficult, and they're so much more extensive. We used to not have to give student work as examples to meet those criteria, but there's a lot to those. And so don't get the two confused. Just because you do program criteria, you think you're halfway through, you're not. You're only like a quarter of the way through. So the KU mappings are the most difficult part, but they just need to make sure that that you have a quality program, and we all do. So anyway, it's just something you have to do. Once you submit your application, it's about 12 to 16 weeks, and it used to be one person at NSA that would go through and spend hours going through your application. So for example, our last redesignation, I said it was in January, but it was January of 2019. So when they did that, you know, in Canvas, you had to give them a link to your Canvas shells. And we clocked them at like 125 hours that they had been in our Canvas shells looking at our courses. So that was, you know, they're not just giving it a casual look, they're really digging down. And then now they're going to be have someone that's an NSA representative, but then also a panel of peers who are CAE representatives that from colleges that have CAE designations. So, and they're going to have you come and, you know, instead of having them come out to your site, you have to go and meet them and kind of defend your application. But by then you will know the ins and outs of everything about your program, so that won't be a problem. They also have requests that they will send out from time to time. Sean, I don't know if you were able to not get one of those, but so, and we didn't get it this last time, but the first time they had asked for some minimal questions and then you had to respond. But now they're really sticking with it. You have 1 week to respond. If you don't respond with the information that is satisfactory to meet their questions, then you've just been declined your application. So be aware that they may come back and ask you questions. It's good because you know they're looking at your application, but make sure you respond very quickly.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would second that, Nancy. We actually went through several rounds of clarification questions. And yeah, you need to make sure that you're timely in your response to their questions and that you do a good job of actually answering the question. They're trying to get to, you know, the bottom of what's going on. So you need to be timely in your response.
Yeah, exactly. Because they're putting in about 20 to 30 hours a person on this, and for each application. And you can see, you know, they probably, I think they're getting like around 60 or 70 applications a year. So, or every cycle, there's 2 cycles that you can apply through. But anyway, so they don't have the time to keep going back and asking for things. So just respond to them when you can. Okay, so now, is it really worth it? Sean, do you think it's worth it? All your hard work?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, well, good. And I think every institution feels that way. So I put on here program improvement, and this is why. I thought, you know, we all think our programs are the best thing, you know, out there. And so I was really proud of our program. And it wasn't until I started going through and looking at the criteria and everything that they were asking for in the knowledge units that it's like, whoa, I need to kind of step this up a little bit. So, you know, I squeaked by the first time with some of the areas, but by the time we came to the redesignation process, it's kind of like accreditation. If you have a finding for your accreditation, you know how your college starts immediately for the next round to try and get that fixed. And so we were really weak on our competitions, because it was just really when Cyber Patriot was really starting to, you know, take off. And, you know, there were just a couple other competitions that were out there, but there weren't many. And so I worked with Dan Manson from Cal Poly Pomona, and he helped us kind of get our competitions going. But for my documentation, I sent in the purchase orders of the equipment that we were buying to support the program, and you know, put in the plan and who I'd talked to and those kinds of things. And so they took it, but now there are a lot more. There's competitions are a lot stronger all over. So if you need help with that, you know, feel free to ask any of us, and we can, you know, help you with that. But you have to have the documentation. So I thought I had a great program, but it wasn't until it came to my mind, you know, going through this thing, it's like, oh, I need to strengthen this, or I need to strengthen that. So our program is so much stronger now than it was when we first applied, because we didn't know what the mark was that we were supposed to be towing, because it was such a, you know, new area. So you do have access to the CAE community in itself. So when we talk about community, it's not just the community website, but it's like Sean, and it's like Toby and myself, and, you know, all the other institutions who've gone through that. It's nice to be able to have them to bounce ideas off of, or if you're trying to start a new focus area for your programs, it's nice to be able to have someone who's been there and has a program that has been, has the CAE designation, who knows what the quality and the rigor needs to be for your program. So it's nice to be able to have that. We also are working as a, Sean, did you want to add something?
Nope.
Okay. So also as a CAE community, we have some work groups that are out looking at different evaluation tools, because they want to be able to have metrics, to be able to show legislators. And so as part of that, they need to have some way of judging the quality and the skill sets that our students have. So they're working, we're working, I know the work group I'm on has about 40 people on it. So it's a great way to get some evaluation tools that you could actually take back and use on your institutions. They're trying to get a group price so that we don't have to buy them as individual colleges. So there's some really great things that are out there. They're looking at different cyber ranges and other types of things like that to give us access to, if they have metrics on keeping track. We also have access to a lot of research. So I know that I was on a research project with Boston University, and we were looking at what the restrictions were for trying to hire new faculty in cybersecurity. I don't know if you've had any luck going out. We always go out and have at least 2 failed searches every time. But we have one open now if anybody's interested. But just finding qualified faculty members for our area. So that was really exciting to get involved with that research grant. There's also professional development that is being offered through your CAE hubs or your CRRC. So there have been a couple of years where we helped sponsor the WASTC, where, you know, we sponsored the travel for that. But there are webinars that are being done currently by Dakota State. They have a strong online program that they've been delivering education through. And so you have access to free training along the line. And then again, the CAE community website gives you access to different types of things that are interested to all of us. So I'm sorry, I'm talking so much. Some of the things that are makes this a winning situation for the students, they have job fairs that are set up by NSA and Homeland Security and other government organizations that are only open to students at CAE institutions. They have scholarship for service opportunities they've just added in the last couple of years a 2-year as well as a 4-year where it pays for students for their tuition, housing, and everything. And then they have internships at government or NSA sites. So the idea is that once you finish your 4-year degree, that you spend 2 years, what was it, like Peace Corps or something, where you had to work for a couple of years afterwards to pay for it. You have Gen Cyber camps. There's a special grouping. Anybody can apply for Gen Cyber, but if you're a CAE institution, you get an extra few points for that. We found that because of our designation, our NSF grants, so we have an incident response NSF grants that Toby went after, and it's just been phenomenal. But because we're a CAE institution, it shows people we're credible and we know what we're doing, and so it's a win for the students. And there are weekly webinars to help us maintain our knowledge of what's currently going on in the institution. All of these things are things that are just for the CAE institutions that not for the general public. So yes, it's very much something that's really great. One last thing, and then I'll finish because I didn't mean to talk so long, but grants. We have been able to receive quite a few grants, and it's because of the CAE. We have a cybersecurity apprenticeship grant that was $1 million from the state of California, but I think the reason we got it was because of our CAE designation, and also help from Steve Lithicum if he's out there. We've gotten state, regional, national grants because of our CAE designation. So it kind of opens up a lot of funding opportunities to be able to, your administrators like having grants, if you don't know that. So, but it also gives you a lot of fun opportunities to get involved. And then the collaboration portion is just being able to talk with people who know what you're doing and what's going on with you is really exciting. So anyway, that's what I wanted to share. I'm sorry I took so long. I just love this topic. So Sean, do you want to take it back?
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that information, Nancy. It's really, really appreciated, and I know it was helpful to a lot of people.